whenever you get to it. So today we're talking about the Christ, but first I have a few jokes. So, and let me tell you, it's not easy. I was looking for Christ jokes. Mostly Jesus jokes come up and they involve things that I don't like nails and crosses, because we don't go there. So I had to look around a while. I don't have a long list, but let me just ask this. So if Mary had baby Jesus and Christ was the Lamb of God, did Mary have a little lamb? What kind of car did Jesus drive? A Chrysler. All right, just
That's a
one
stretch.
more.
That's a stretch.
What is Christ's favorite cracker? Cheez-Its.
These are groaners, really.
All right.
These are grandpa jokes.
Well, like I said, it was like the other choices. I was like, no, I'm not going there. I have been teaching the Unity course, the Christ. So that's what, I was like, well, let me put together a message about this. And so the first actual question, that's not a joke. Have you all noticed that Unity uses the word Christ differently than you hear in common culture or in the religion you might have grown up with? We use it in different ways. Thus, there's an entire 10-hour course in Unity. So I tend to not use the word too much on Sunday mornings, because for a lot of people it just immediately goes to references that are not what we mean in Unity, but it is really meaningful. So we're not going to do 10 hours this morning, but we'll just do a little cruise through. What I like to start with very often is, let me just start with just looking up the word Christ and seeing what comes up. So I did a Google search, and so the first definition came up as a title given to Jesus. Christ means a title given. The second definition on this just Google search was an expletive, a curse word.
Oh,
Wow.
Like Christ on a bike, or Christ on a cracker, or so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
found that amusing, that was like the second thing. Now, if you click on something to say, tell me more, then you get to a definition that says the anointed one or an anointed one. So I was like, oh, let's save that one. Then I looked a little bit deeper. I looked specifically on Merriam-Webster to see what they had. And they list the word Christ first as a synonym for Jesus, and then as a synonym for Messiah. And then they list it as an ideal type of humanity. It's like, oh, that's a keeper. Because of course in Unity, we see all of us as being anointed ones, and all of us having within us, at the point of each one of us, that potential to access that ideal type of humanity. We get there in little moments, we're out here in our human lives, so we're bumping along, making mistakes and things like that, but we have those moments where we know it's like, there it is. And so it's something that we're constantly kind of seeking to express and to be in touch with. So where does the Unity perspective on the Christ comes from? Where does it come from? Well, our Unity founders very much had the Bible as their reference point, and there are lots of examples of where they came up with this notion of the Christ. And of course, Unity is not the only spiritual path that thinks of the Christ in this way, because Unity is a part of kind of a large collective of New Thought spiritual paths. So, but we're here to talk about Unity stuff. So specifically, if we look in the Bible at Genesis 1, and I just have one phrase that I have on my notes here: let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. So there it is in Genesis. Let us know that, we are in the likeness of all that is, of the heart of the universe, that each one of us is made in that image. And according to the likeness. Then there are some words from Jesus himself in the Gospel of John. So let me read this one. Here's Jesus speaking. It is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe on the evidence of the work themselves. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. So here's Jesus acknowledging his oneness with Source, and also letting us know that it's not just him as like a special category, but that we all have that, and we all have the potential to do what he's doing, what the examples that he's shown us, and even greater. And here's another quote also from the Gospel of John. This is Jesus in prayer, so speaking with his Source. The glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may be completely one. So there's where that whole notion of oneness comes from, that is at the heart of unity teachings. And also a favorite from for a lot of unity ministers and practitioners is a quote from the Apostle Paul from Colossians, Christ in you, the hope of glory. So there are lots of examples that kind of present the location of the divine as being within us rather than out there. And these are some of the examples. We could go on and on and on with that. And of course, we see this in Unity's 5 principles, particularly in the first 2. And I see that you all share like one of those each week.
Yeah.
So I like to think of the, you could do an entire talk on each one of those. I like to go to the short version for me, which is principle 1 being God is, and principle 2 being I am. Because what we say with the first principle is that which we call God, and whatever name you have for it, is goodness and is fully present all the time. And then principle 2 tells us that it is expressing at the point of each one of us. And that expression is called the Christ. It's also called I am. It's called lots of different things. It's called principle. It's called lots of different things, but one of them being the Christ. So all of these different ways of approaching the Christ, there's another one that really is my favorite, and that would be the metaphysical approach to what is the Christ. So when I'm teaching a course, I put up an image on the screen of what looks like an infinite field of stars. And don't we have some wonderful pictures of like the universe that were being shown these days from the new James Webb telescope? It's just like, so I put up an image that's like that is just infinite. And so that which we call God is that sense of just limitless, and there are no boundaries, there are no limits on it, and so it's an infinite field. And yet we can see, individual little, expressions, whether, if we're looking at a field of stars, it's like each one is a particular individual expression. Another name for, in unity metaphysics, what we talk about, like all the content that is out there in the universe, we'll call them divine ideas. That is just an infinite field of divine ideas. So when we think of, in human terms, when we think of divine ideas, we're thinking about something like faith. Faith that is ever present. We can, as humans, have a limited experience of faith, and because it's based on what's in our own consciousness, right? But divine ideas that are just out there and limitless in potential. You can look at an idea as simple as table. So how many times can you use the idea of table? Is there a limit? Like, oh, you get 17, and after that you can't use that idea of table anymore. No, you can use it as many times as you want. The idea of table doesn't become, less powerful
Used up.
because you've used it. And if you think of in, the material world, how many different versions of table are there in the world? And how many more can be created? Because it's an idea that's infinite. And one of the things that I'm still talking about, this infinite field, which sometimes we call God and the universe, whatever. One of the things that I really love about Unity is how it flows with science, rather than a lot of us have been through religious experiences where the belief system requires that you be at odds with science, that you don't believe in things that science are saying. And yet, in Unity, the further and further science gets to understanding the nature of the universe, the closer it comes to what we already believe in Unity. So what they've been looking at these days, those scientists, they look a lot at not just the spots of stars and galaxies and planets, but all the space in between. And what is that? And the answer that they are consistently coming up with is, it's consciousness. And isn't that what we talk about in Unity? So that is the infinite field, and it's filled with divine ideas, and it expresses in very specific individual ways. And right now, it's expressing in individual ways right here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And at your home, it might be in your house plant, or your pet, or your neighbor. But all of these, and that individual specific expression of all that is coming forth is called the Christ, or the I am. So here are some quotes, some Unity quotes on the Christ. Here's a quote from Charles Fillmore from Keep a True Lent. The Christ is the divine idea of humankind. So we were talking about, the universe filled with divine ideas. So it's the divine idea of humankind that's expressing so many times over. Here's a quote from the Heart-Centered Metaphysics by Paul Hasselbeck. The Christ within consciousness is our true essence and our divine nature. It is the presence of divine mind within consciousness. It is what we really are. One more, and this is from Charles Fillmore, Atom Smashing Power of Mind. I have to confess, I haven't read that one, but I've seen some good quotes. I need to get a copy of that. The Christ in Jesus existed before the personality. This is true for all of us. Christ is the spiritual mind in every individual. So, lots of different ways of approaching this word Christ and what it means. One of the things that I got excited about when I was kind of digging around, finding different things that I wanted to share, at Unity of Bon Air, they have a morning class that happens on Zoom from 9 to 10, and they've been studying this book, Practical Metaphysics by Eric Butterworth, for a while. And it's a nice book for a study because like the little sections are only like 2 pages long, and so I follow along on that when I can, because I love Eric Butterworth. He's so wonderfully just eloquent and just beautiful in the way he does language. So I was kind of tickled when I came across an example that referenced, so we've been talking about the Bible, we've been talking about more recent quotes on what the Christ is, and Butterworth kind of lands right in the middle because he brings up a Shakespeare example. Are there any Shakespeare enthusiasts in the room? Anyone? I have worked a couple of times with, I did a season with Maryland Shakespeare Festival back in like 1991. I did several seasons with Richmond Shakespeare Festival. So going back to when I was in Maryland, and this festival takes place, or took place, I don't know that it exists anymore, on the campus of a little college called St. Mary's College, and it's on the water, it's very beautiful. And they had one of these flexible theater spaces that didn't have a fixed stage. It was just kind of an open space, and they would create the stage and whatever, for each show. So sometimes it might be in the round, and sometimes, but the thing that's a challenge with that, from a logistical standpoint and a technical standpoint, is there's not a control booth. Like usually when you go to a show, there's a control booth. But when you are in a flexible space, there's not a fixed location for that. And I was the production manager, the production stage manager for the whole season. And for this particular production that I'm going to reference of Hamlet, the location that I was to call the show from, which is, just kind of saying go to each and every change that happens, was in the rafters of the room. So I literally would have to go up into the grid and go up a ladder and basically lay on my tummy on a platform.
Holy cow.
And with my headset on. And from there, I, for the first time, was exposed to Hamlet. And I'm still at a place where after, when you do a show, it just soaks into your bones, the language, the beauty of it, the movement, all of this. And so now anytime I see a production, I just have to go because I just want to dive into that again. And so I was tickled when I found this quotation from Eric Butterworth. And this is a section, what is he talking about here? All right, so he's talking about the Christ and the Christ in us. So here's what he has to say. Shakespeare had this tremendous appreciation of man, as in Hamlet, he says, "What a piece of work is man. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god." Of course, this talks about the height of man's consciousness, the great spiritual potential that is within man. It senses something about the hidden mystery of God and man that Apostle Paul calls Christ in you, your hope of glory. Christ, you see, which Paul refers to, is not Jesus at all. Jesus discovered this dimension of the Christ, and therefore he was called figuratively Jesus Christ. But Christ is the God possibility within every person. It is your hope of overcoming. It's your hope of healing. It's your hope of growing and doing the greater things that Jesus promised you can do. It's a depth of you, not something that can be added on or put into, or something that you get just by believing somebody else, even in Jesus. It's that which is the reality of you from the very beginning, the very foundation of your life. And then he references that quote from Genesis. God created man in his own image after his likeness. So a little Shakespeare thrown in there.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big concept, but it's something that we can just sort of continue to work with in our lives. So on the one hand, think of what a responsibility this is. In Unity, we are taught that each and every one of us has the power of power, that is the master and sovereign of our own consciousness. And just knowing that our consciousness and what we do with it in the world is an expression of all that is, that's kind of a big job, isn't it? That's something to take seriously. That's something to think seriously about. How is God expressing at the point of you? How are you handling that? How are you doing it? You are literally the hands, the words, the movement of that which we call God, as you, the Christ, expressing at the point of you. So you can think of it as a responsibility. You can also think of it as a joy, a tremendous opportunity. What an opportunity to be the expression of love in this world, in those little moments as you go through your life. And how many times do you get to do that in your life? To be that expression of love, to be an expression of enthusiasm, compassion, joy. So much opportunity there to be the vehicle through which beauty comes forth. Lots and lots of good stuff there, right? So seek always to recognize the Christ within yourself and be easy with yourself, my friends, because we are here 100% human all the time and 100% divine all the time, but our outer lives can really pull our focus, right?
Yes.
We can dive into things that are problems, that are hard, that are sad, that are, make us angry, all of those things. So be easy with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Realize that the Christ that is you is present fully all the time. It doesn't matter if you had a bad day or didn't do well with a particular situation. That doesn't diminish the Christ. That doesn't diminish the potential. This is a divine idea. You can't mess it up by doing poorly with something or by, getting angry when you should have been patient. You can't mess it up. It's still there. It's fully intact. All it takes is for you to shift your attention to it. Rather than whatever you're worried about, whatever made you angry, take a breath in your spiritual practice. Shift your attention to that notion of the Christ expressing at the point of you. It's all there. It's fully available all the time. And hold the high watch for yourself. And likewise, here's where it can get even more challenging, is seeing the Christ in others. Because all the other people, whether you like them or not, whether they have the same politics as you do or not, are also an expression of all that is. So allow that same degree of kindness with others as well. When you see the outer expression that you don't like, whatever it is, take a breath and see with your spiritual eyes, if you can, see behind whatever it is, because we all know that, a lot of times acting out is not about whatever the acting out is that's happening, right? There's something behind it. Usually people want to feel safe, they want to feel worthy, they want to feel heard. So when you're dealing with an individual that you're allowing to push your buttons, and so make that attempt from your Christ perspective to acknowledge the Christ in them and be gentle with them, just as you would be gentle with yourself. And as Jesus advised us to do not judge by outer appearances. So do that for yourself and for them. Hold the high watch for others. Seeing the Christ expressing. Seeing them knowing it and acting on it and being the hands and the voice and the motion of all that is in the world. So I'm going to go ahead and move us into a time of meditation on all of this. we hold this intention of seeking the Christ. So if you would, take a couple of deep breaths and just settle more into your seat. Just notice for a moment, just notice the pressure of your body on the seat, perhaps your feet on the floor. Do you notice the air touching your skin? Just coming to this moment right now. And I'd like to encourage you to bring an image of yourself to mind. However it is that shows up, whether it's today or an image from childhood or 2 weeks ago, whatever it is that comes up for you. See the Christ that you are. See the Christ expressing fully and freely as you. Repeat after me. May I be well.
May I be well.
May I be at peace.
May I be at peace.
May I be free of suffering.
May I be free of suffering.
May I live my life with ease.
May I live my life with ease.
Take a deep breath. Now bring to mind the image of someone you love. Just whoever comes up first, even if it's your pet. Just someone you love. See the Christ that they are. See the Christ expressing fully and freely as them. Repeat after me. May you be well.
May you be well.
May you be at peace.
May you be at peace.
May you be free of suffering.
May you be free of suffering.
May you live your life with ease.
May you live your life with ease.
Take a deep breath right here. Now I ask you to bring to mind an image of someone with whom you have differences, someone you have had some conflict with, someone you find difficult. See the Christ that they are. See the Christ expressing fully and freely as this individual. And repeat after me. May you be well.
May you be well.
May you be at peace.
May you be at peace.
May you be free of suffering.
May you be free of suffering.
May you live your life with ease.
May you live your life with ease.
And now we will take all of this and whatever's coming up for you into the stillness for a few moments. As we begin to bring our awareness back to the current moment, back to the place in which we are, your body sitting in the seat, my voice in this space. Let us celebrate. Let us lean into gratitude for the wonderful opportunity to experience all that is at the point of us. God expressing at the point of a beautiful flower. The universe expressing in the beauty of the ocean. All of these opportunities are available for us once we put our attention there and vibrate with that energy of gratitude as the Christ expresses through our consciousness, through our Christ consciousness, through the Christ consciousness that comes forth in so many different ways. And we are grateful. So come back into this room and allow your eyes to drift open, and let us close with an affirmation. Here's our affirmation today. I am the Christ, and I am grateful.
I am the Christ, and I am grateful.
Another time. I am the Christ, and I am grateful. Really let it sink in and give it some gusto.
I am the Christ, and I am